Okay, we are live. Thanks to everyone who's joining us right now. We're just going to wait a couple more seconds just to make sure we have time for people to join in. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today as we're here with the OCEARCH crew live to talk about kind of our 2020 expeditions, recap, kind of give you an idea of where we are right now, and then just inform different ways that you can help support us this Giving Tuesday. So just so you can see the crew we have today, we have Chris Fisher, OCEARCH founder and expedition leader. We have Dr. Mickey McComb-Kobza from Ocean First Institute, one of our collaborating scientists. We have our OCEARCH chief scientist, Dr. Bob Huter, with us today. Our intern, Lucy, who got to join us on expeditions this year, and our development director, Stephanie Brown. So thanks for joining, everyone, and thanks for everyone tuning in today. I'm going to give it off to Chris to kind of give a recap of where we are and what our 2021 looked like.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for being here. 2021 was an amazing year. Right now, you can see the ship is out of the water. She's in Savannah, Georgia, getting a little time in the shipyard, really preparing for 2022 and the exciting things we have to come in 2022. For many of you who don't know, we have to take the ship out of the ocean about every 3 years for, a good look at the bottom and the bottom paint and make sure everything is sound. And so this is just kind of our annual, every third year kind of shipyard experience, especially since we're preparing to travel a little bit next year. When we take a look back at 2021 was a fantastic year. We sampled and tagged 15 white sharks over 3 expeditions. Really the first one in North Carolina. We had brutal weather. We saw several sharks. We had shots at probably about 4 sharks, and we got 2 of those animals and dealt with a lot of weather there, which is typical in that March, April timeframe off the Carolinas. Then we slid up into Massachusetts, where we continue to develop the science around this whole new kind of juvenile white sharks that are living a few miles off the beach there, tagging several sharks there. Finally, then moving up into Nova Scotia, where we continue to build on the pioneering work that started 4 years ago, and we sampled and tagged 10 white sharks up there. So a great trip, 3 full expeditions through COVID, which we're proud of. We were able to operate three full expeditions in 2020 and 2021. This work is important. We had to find a way. We did. We were determined to do that. And we've had some incredible research papers published. So very successful year in 2021. When you look forward, or when you look at what's going on with the sharks right now, this is the typical time of year, and Bob will talk about this a little bit more, where our sharks are heading south. We have many sharks have already arrived in the southeastern United States, and there's a few stragglers up north that are winding their way down, the last of the animals to arrive down in the southeast, which typically occurs sometime around January 1st or so. Most all the sharks are down there, other than maybe 1 or 2 stragglers. So we're seeing the same thing we've seen: predictable, repeatable migratory paths. Bob's going to dig into the science a little bit more, so I'll pass that off to him for this slide right here.
Thanks a lot, Chris, and I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving and is looking forward to a long and wonderful holiday season with your families. We had a happy 2021 ourselves, as Chris said, and what we've been working on so hard the last 5 years is trying to understand the life history, what biologists call the life history, the life cycle, all those aspects of life from birth to death, in the white shark in the Western North Atlantic, and what Chris very simply and eloquently has called the white shark puzzle. And what's exciting to report to you all today is that we're just about finished assembling all the pieces of that puzzle. The puzzle looks like this on the graphic in front of you. This shows all the important parts of the lives of these animals, these great predators, from when they're born off of the Long Island area, off the northeast coast of the United States, to where they spend the winters down in the southeast, to how they then expand their range all the way up into Atlantic Canada, Newfoundland, and beyond. They go all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico in the wintertime. And as Chris said, the southern migration, the southern push of these animals, of these great animals, is happening right now as they make their way south, from the smallest ones to the biggest ones down here to where I am in Florida. And then that big offshore zone is a place where we've discovered and revealed that these big reproductive females, these adult females, are actually looping offshore. And this is the area that we have hypothesized is where these animals are pregnant and gestating their young to return about 1.5 years later to off the coast of Long Island in the Northeast. The one piece of the puzzle that we're yet to finally put the last bits to is where these guys are mating. We think we've figured it out. We think we've sort of cornered them into an area off of North Carolina and the Carolinas in the southeast in the late winter, early spring, and that's the expedition that we're planning now for March of next year to finally see hopefully these big reproductive animals coming together. So that's the puzzle. And I think we have one more slide. Yeah, and I just wanted to tell you about one of our many projects. You know, we're running 24 different projects all at once, and every animal that we bring to the ship that our wonderful fishing crew gets for us and brings to the ship in beautiful health, every one of those is sampled and measured and examined and ultimately tagged and released for 24 different projects, all going at once. It's a tremendous integration of science and a tremendous collaboration of 42 scientists from 30 institutions in the US and Canada. But one of our newest ones this year was with a great friend of ours from Canada, this fellow here, Dr. Nigel Hussey, who's at the University of Waterloo in Ontario. And Nigel added a component that we hadn't done before, something called biologgers. These are instrument packages that go on the sharks. They're attached to the dorsal fin. They only stay on for about a day or a little bit more than a day, usually. And these instruments measure everything about what the animal's doing, from its swimming speed to even having sonar cameras on the packages so that we can see what other animals are around it. It's a whole series of instruments. It's very it's very science fiction-y looking, but they worked really well. And up in Canada, Nigel put out 5 of these packages, including one that stayed on a white shark for 40 hours. It's the longest ever a biologger has been put on a white shark. So the information that he gets from these biologgers will really help us understand the lives of these animals, and especially their critical habitats and what they're doing while they're feeding and while they're mating. So that's a little thumbnail sketch of some of the great science that happened this past year. And I'll turn it over to Stephanie, I think, next.
Well, I just want to say, Bob, you know, when you go back to the previous slide, for all the people out there, this is what we've been envisioning in our mind, right? And when we talk about the white shark life history puzzle, it's really these, 6 major components of their lives that are really important if you want to be able to manage them. Why does this matter, right? They're the top of the food chain, and the system won't work if our white sharks aren't thriving. So we know we're down to a low percentage of white sharks, and the way to bring them back is to understand where and when they mate, where and when they give birth, and the size of that nursery to look after the baby sharks that's between Long Island and the Carolinas, their first year of life when they're most vulnerable. Obviously, looking after them where the females are gestating, and then making sure they succeed up there in the north. You know, when we started our work, we thought they might be mating up there in kind of the northeastern United States, New England and Nova Scotia. And when we went up there the first time and we started sampling these animals, you know, we just didn't see any hormones elevated in the males or females. We didn't see viable sperm samples out of the males. We didn't see anything in our ultrasound work that would, or in the blood work, you know, that would say, oh, they're mating here. So it's taken us a number of years to put together this puzzle. And so the last key piece is nailing down the hormone work and the blood work and the sperm work where they're mating, right? And we think we know where that is. We just need a few more samples so the scientists can publish their papers, right? They have to have a good sample size so they have good defensible science. So wow, this is the first time this has ever been done before in history. Why does it matter? Well, we can manage our white sharks back. They're the system managers. If the white sharks are thriving, the system is thriving. That's why, right? Super important. We now know how and where to manage them. Also, we're putting a stake in the ground for climate change, right? We've never had a baseline of movements of the apex predator in this region and in most regions, so that we can understand where those sharks are moving now in 2018 to 2021. Where's that range? We don't have anything to compare that to previously to understand if their range is shifting north, which would be an enormous impact if the system manager, the apex predator, was shifting north. But now the future will have that baseline of data. We've put a stake in the ground on the apex predator in this region for all future climate change and migration shifting type of studies. So this is a really big deal. This has never been done anywhere in the world. And now that we have the timing of their movements and we know where and when in these components of their migrations they're mating or birthing or foraging, we can apply that same cycle, that same migratory pattern to the work that we've done in South Africa previously, to the work we've done out in the Pacific previously off of Mexico and California. And we can start to zero in on where these critical areas on there based on the timing of their movements, because we now understand what they're doing across their entire range. And that's going to play a big part when it comes to trying to tackle these more complicated migratory puzzles in regions where there's way less white sharks, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But this is a really big deal. This is the executive summary of 83 white sharks that have been sampled by a huge collaborative multidisciplinary team over a period of about 7 years of field work, 6 to 7 years of field work. And that's fast. It's never been done before. And it was done efficiently. It was done about as cheap as you can do it. And it's a big deal. And we really feel like if we can provide all the global white shark populations with their life history puzzles, and every region can manage their white sharks back, that would be an amazing contribution to the future of the planet, because if they're thriving, those systems will be thriving. And from here, I'll pass it on, I guess, to Steph.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing just kind of the importance of learning that life history puzzle of the white sharks. So we're going to come next to our development director, Stephanie Brown. But first, I'm going to play a little video just to kind of introduce Stephanie.
My name's Stephanie Brown. I'm development director here at OCEARCH, and we are standing in front of our newly created donor wall. We were so lucky to be able to partner with CDEC to create this one-of-a-kind piece on board the MV OCEARCH. For gifts of $55 or more, donors are recognized as philanthropic supporters on board the MV OCEARCH. The individuals on this wall represent the collective support of our community for OCEARCH and advancing our mission forward. Our supporter wall is found outside the crew room, so every time the fishing crew leaves and returns from a wonderful day of fishing, they get to see everyone's names and support and cheering them on for all that they do.
And before we hand it over to Steph, for anyone who's just joining us right now, I want to say thanks for joining our live. We are going to be taking questions throughout the live, so we're here to talk about ways to support us this Giving Tuesday and a little recap of 2021. So our chief scientist, Dr. Bob Huter, and our founder, Chris Fisher, did a quick recap on our 2021 expeditions. And we're now here with our development director, Stephanie Brown. So again, if you have any questions for any of our crew members throughout the live, just be sure to drop them in the comments. We'll try to address them.
Awesome. Thanks, Paige. We get to talk about my favorite day of the year, Giving Tuesday. This year we have quite a few ways that you can join us and support this wonderful research that Bob and Chris just shared, and have your name on board the MV OCEARCH. You can see on the screen a picture of the current wall. It is massive. It sits outside of the crew room, so everyone coming on and off the ship gets to see it, and it's through a $55 donation at OCEARCH.org/holiday. You can find all of the information there on how to give. It's the perfect gift for yourself or the philanthropist within your family, and a great way to recognize and advance our mission forward. I think do we have a few pictures of the ship? This is the MV OCEARCH for the people that don't know, that are just joining us or have not been around for a while. Chris, if you would, I'd love the story of how we found the MV OCEARCH, because I think it's just so great. If you don't mind sharing a little bit.
Sure. Well, in 2007, Captain Brett and I were working on the water, and we came into a place called Los Sueños, Costa Rica. And this vessel was anchored up in the bay outside of Los Sueños, Costa Rica. It was called the Arctic Eagle. And believe it or not, it was in season 1 of Deadliest Catch with, I think, Wild Bill at the helm. And it had been converted, and that lift was converted to pick up a big boat, like a 50-foot sport fisher. And there was a gentleman who was using it to move around the world. And that lift would pick up the big boat, and he would carry a center console. And he was fishing the most remote parts of the world, which we thought, we needed that sort of capacity to try to assist scientists in answering these bigger questions. And so in the beginning, I got to be honest, we were working on like ESPN Outdoors, and we were making big game fishing shows about conservation and fishing around the world. And then we started helping scientists. We saw they needed help catching things and letting them go alive. So if we were in an area catching marlin, we would help the marlin scientist or the sailfish scientist. And then those scientists came to us and said, hey, there's a major shark problem. And if we don't fix the shark problem, there's not going to be any of these billfish or tuna and other things you're helping us with, because they're balance keepers. And we said, well, someone's certainly helping with that project that has capacity to solve these life history puzzles, which is what they were talking about. And they said, no, they're too big. It hasn't been done. And right at the moment, they can just have a limited capacity to learn, because they're really don't have safe access to the animals to do all the science they need to do to solve that puzzle. So we pivoted our work into exploration and science starting in 2007 at that time, and moved to National Geographic and the History Channel from 2009 to 2012. And then in 2012, at the end of the year, we created the Global Shark Tracker and decided to open source our work so the whole world could be involved in real time. But, we didn't really find sharks. The sharks found us. And when we had the vessel and the lift and we knew we could pick things up, we thought we could create an opportunity for scientists to answer bigger, more complicated questions that were fundamentally important, really, to just trying to make sure that all of our great grandkids can see an ocean full of fish. And we pivoted at that time, and that was the beginning of OCEARCH.
Awesome. So having your name on board is a great way to join our support crew, help advance our mission forward. You're going to hear a little bit about what's coming up in 2022. And I think you'll want to be a part of it. So
yeah, and
join us.
I will say, just to add to that, the crew wall is located where all of us walk by it every single day, multiple times a day, right outside of the crew room, right outside of the day head when we're walking in and out the house. So it's very visible. We look at those names every single time we walk by.
That's awesome. And then we've got another way you can join us this Giving Tuesday, which is by joining or by creating a fundraiser on social media. So we've created a wonderful toolkit that teaches you how to do this. You can find it on OCEARCH.org/holiday, or if you have questions, please feel free. You can email me. My email's up on the screen, sbrown@OCEARCH.org. We can help talk you through how to support Giving Tuesday.
And then just to add
One
to
of the
that,
things just to talk about, one of the things we've really tried to do, and I hope people understand, is we've opened up this science to the public in real time. We're trying to democratize the path in the ocean science space so that everyone can be involved in real time, because in the end, it's going to take us all. And this is a way of democratizing the space when it comes to paying for things, right? Instead of it coming from a few people who then try to influence, maybe the science that you pursue and where you pursue it. So this is part of democratizing the whole thing. All of the work is by the people, for the people, funded by the people. And so that we can all choose what science we want to fund for our kids.
Yeah, and like Steph said earlier, if you go to ocearch.org/holiday, there's a lot of information about how to create a Facebook fundraiser. There's different downloadable assets that you can use to help promote your fundraiser. And it's also right now, Facebook's doing a ton right now for Giving Tuesday. So as soon as you log on, there's a button that you can choose, a little heart next to the Facebook logo, and create your Facebook fundraiser right from there. And now I want to answer a couple questions that we've been receiving. So one of the things we've been receiving a lot is about sharks and water temperatures, and what kind of water temperatures do white sharks prefer?
Well, I want to give a shout out. First of all, I see we got Rhonda from Sydney, and we got our friends from up in Brasdale or Nova Scotia. We got some people in South Africa, some people in Wales. You might want to stay tuned to the rest of this conversation. You too, Bruno, asking about the UK. Got our peoples here down here in Florida. So look, they're the La Have, love La Have. They're here. So it's great to see that we truly have people from all over the world joining this call. When it comes to the temperature of white sharks, so I mean, we got Dr. Bob Huter on here. He's like one of the biggest shark experts in the world. But generally speaking, these white sharks like temperate waters, right? The cooler waters of the ocean versus a tiger shark that would prefer like the tropical waters. So when we're trying to work with white sharks, we love that water temperature that's, between 55 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit, which, if I remember correctly, is around 15 or 16 Celsius. Those are the waters that the white sharks like.
And then Margot asked if water temperatures could affect hormone levels at all in sharks.
I'll leave that to you, Bob.
So, as Chris said, white sharks, they like cool temperate waters, but they can actually tolerate a very broad range of water temperatures. Now, remember, white sharks are really very special animals because unlike the majority of shark species, white sharks are able to moderate their body temperature and actually keep their bodies warmer than the surrounding ocean water, which is very unusual among sharks and makes them very different from most of the other, what we call fish. We actually have discovered and recently published a paper that showed that the white sharks that we've tagged have gone into water temperatures even below freezing, below the freezing point of water. And how do they do that? They don't go into an ice cube, but the water temperature just below 0 degrees Celsius has salt in it, and because it has salt in it, it doesn't quite freeze at that point. So imagine these animals are able to go into a freezing slurry of cold seawater and function and go all the way up into near tropical conditions at times. So to the question about the effect on something like hormones, certainly water temperature does affect the physiology of the body. It affects all the systems that require different kinds of things like proteins to work, reproductive hormones included. You're going to find that animals going through their reproductive cycles are going to prefer certain kinds of water conditions in terms of temperature to be able to make their bodies just right for being in reproductive condition. So this goes back to Chris's point a few minutes ago about the effects of climate change and how climate change may be affecting where these animals go to do things like reproduce and feed properly. And one of the things that has come out of our studies is the importance of a place like Canada. Canada was never thought to be that important for the white shark in the Western North Atlantic. And we've shown that that's clearly not true. It's extremely important summer habitat for the white shark and might be one of the most important places that we protect to conserve and bring back these animals in the Western North Atlantic.
I think one of the things I think about when you're looking at the tracker is like, how does this ability of the sharks actually play out when you're tracking a shark on the tracker? And George asks about how do you estimate weight, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I always think about those sharks that are lagging as we look at the sharks that are moving south right now. I always think of the ones that stay up there late as like the seal eaters. Like that shark is a seal eater, right? Because the water temperature's plummeting. They can keep eating seals and keep themselves warm as they move around, right? Because they got to burn a lot more energy to stay warm because it's colder. And so I always look at those sharks that are the last ones up there coming down, and it'll surprise you. It's not always the biggest ones. If you look deep into Mary Lee's track, you'll say she stayed way up north, way late when the water temperatures were almost down to freezing for a long time. And I think she was just consuming seals one after the other. But then you get a little shark like Sable, who is lagging way up in North Carolina. And you start to wonder, like, wow, for her size, is she a little bit more of a seal specialist than a fish eater? Because she's up there deep in the year, a smaller shark, and she must be consuming a tremendous amount of, calories to stay warm. And there's no better way to do that than to put some pressure on the seals. And what happens when they put the pressure on the seals? The seals don't eat our fish, right? So these white sharks are the guardians of our fish stocks. They prevent those seals from wiping everything out. And it's always interesting to see the last ones leaving down, because I always then, as I watch them across the rest of their journey, like really think of them as like a meat eater, right? A seal eater, not so much a squid and fish specialist.
That's great. And then one more question we had is, how do we calculate the weight?
Yeah, I'll leave that to you, Bob. That was from George. He asked about calculating weight.
So we don't actually measure the weight. We would like to, and we've tried to come up with different ways to incorporate actual electronic scales into the lift, and we may do that at some point. But the method that we use to estimate the total weight of the animal is based on a paper that was published in the peer-reviewed literature that simply takes the length measured, what's called the precaudal length, which is the distance from the nose to the sort of the just before the tail itself, the what's called the precaudal pit, and then measure the girth. And if you watch us on the ship as we're going through the process, you'll see that when we roll the animals from what we call stage 1 to stage 2, from on their side to upright, the guys and Chris is usually right there doing it, get the tape right underneath the animal, a measuring tape that goes around the widest part of the body, which is right just in front of the first dorsal fin and behind the pectoral fins. That's the girth. And we take that measurement, take the precaudal length measurement, and plug it into a fairly straightforward formula, and that gives us weight. We do it in meters, and then it gives us weight in kilograms, and then we can convert it to pounds. So what you're seeing on the tracker is what we call total estimated weight of the animals. And it should be pretty accurate based on the studies that have been done in the past.
Want to hit a few more questions, Paige? Or should we talk about the future before we hit, because it might change the questions a lot?
Yes. I think if people continue to add your questions to the comments, we'll get a little more later. But now we're going to go and we're going to hear from our intern, Lucy, who was nice to join us for Expedition Nova Scotia this year. And so before we kind of go to Lucy, I wanted to share a quick little video to show a little bit about Lucy's time as our intern this past year.
One night when we were transiting from Massachusetts to New Hampshire, we were all standing up on the bow watching the sunset, and there were dolphins jumping, and it was just like a moment of realization that I could do something like this as a career, and it was just spectacular. My name is Lucy Degnan. I'm studying biology, the specialization in conservation and environmental science, and I'm OCEARCH's Science and Education Intern. Being an intern for OCEARCH means that I get to do a little bit of everything. I get to help out the different scientists with their projects, taking samples, helping with bruvs and eDNA, getting to fish a little bit too. So when a shark has been on the lift, my role has been to take swabs for a microbiome study, take fin clips for genetics study. I'm in charge of making sure the measuring tape is where it needs to be for both the girth measurements and the length measurements. And I have been assisting Brian in taking the muscle samples. Getting to work with all the scientists is really special. Getting to know what they've done, what they're interested in, how they got there, how I might be able to get there. It's given me a lot of new perspectives. I guess the most important things that I think that OCEARCH has done has allowed scientists to come together to collaborate on so many different projects at the same time. And I'll be walking away with a lot more confidence in being able to participate in science. At this point, I've been looking at science from afar, reading papers and learning about things, but I feel more confident actually applying what I know now.
And that's our intern, Lucy, and she's joined today to share a little bit about her internship experience and also what it was like to not only see her first white shark, but actually be able to work up a white shark alongside our collaborating scientists.
Well, and we got to give it up to Lucy here. First of all, yeah, she helped a lot of people, but in one stint that we were on, the scientists couldn't be there. We had a gap. And Lucy actually took over the whole role of that individual and ran that project with incredible discipline and consistency. So that was a little understated about how professional this young lady is and how competent, and also has that ability to work at sea. You know, when you're at sea, you work every day from dawn to dark, and that's just how it is. And she powered through that. So much respect for Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here.
Yeah, my name is Lucy. I was the intern this summer. As far as my first shark goes, my first shark this summer was Scott. He was caught within the first 2 hours of the first day of fishing in Nova Scotia, which was very exciting. Yeah, so I guess on the lift, I was in charge of taking a couple different samples, and going on for my first shark, I actually felt very prepared. The leadership on the ship was incredible, especially Bob and all of the other scientists. They made me feel very comfortable and confident knowing what I was going to be doing. And then getting on the lift for the first time with the shark was just absolutely humbling. You know, you kind of think you know what you're going to expect, but yeah, it was humbling. And then it was also great being on the lift, getting to step back and just observe all the scientists and just watch carefully what they're doing and learn why they're doing it. It was, yeah, for shark, all of the sharks were great experiences.
Lucy, I just want to say that you know, in my long career working on sharks, I have helped to mentor literally hundreds of undergraduate students. And for all of those of you who are watching and want to know how you can do this sort of thing for a career, you need to study Lucy, because she came on the ship with very little background, and she did some amazingly great things, which included talking less than listening, listening, learning, working with all the scientists, trying to learn a little bit about each project, working hard, being patient, knowing that things don't happen that quickly. The lessons she learned on the ship were life lessons, and that's what I would tell all of you that are watching. It takes a long time to get this, to build a career in this kind of thing, and she's on the right path. So kudos to you, Lucy, and the rest of you out there. You got a high bar to meet for the next intern on the ship.
Thank you. It was a spectacular time out on the ship, and like Bob was saying, one of my favorite parts of being out on the ship was just getting a chance to talk to everybody and learn about all of the different scientists and how they got there. Because like some people, I remember Mickey, it sounds like she always kind of knew what she wanted to do, but a lot of them didn't. And it was very interesting seeing how everybody got to where they are now. Very, very special.
And, a way to pass through that is through Jacksonville University. And we have a nice relationship with the University of Virginia as well. Jacksonville University is the academic home of OCEARCH and soon to be the home of the OCEARCH Ocean Policy Center. It's really all about these young emerging scientists, right? These are the people that are going to create the data and they're going to collect the data and publish the papers that are leveraged to build on this work to make sure we can manage the ocean. It's all about data and the ability to manage.
Happy to be part of it.
We got a couple more questions, Paige. Someone just asked one that's kind of pertinent now. Margot asks, if the sharks are mating off North Carolina, what's the major food source there? When you look at that whole life history puzzle we talked about, you got to think about the northeastern United States and Nova Scotia, like so many animals, like the ducks that migrate north and all sorts of movement of big animals where they go into these regions and it's abundant, right? They feed, they bulk up, they arrive in Nova Scotia after a long winter, likely skinny, right? And then they start putting the pressure on the seals. They start bulking up and they're really trying to bulk up from say July until they head back south again, which can start in October and be as late as the first of the year. And they're trying to bulk up so that when they head south, like they're fat and ready to endure the winter. When they get to North Carolina, their biggest source they have of food there that happens, several times a year is the opportunity to forage on whale carcasses. But they also, these animals, they eat whatever they want, whenever they want. So we see them moving on all sorts of big fish events. So if you're having a black drum run down the beach, the white sharks are on that. If the redfish, or some people call them red drum, but if the redfish are piled up on the river jetties, and they're 40, 50-pound redfish, all those guys know down there, they catch them all winter. The white sharks are going in there and slurping those things up like 50-pound gumdrops. And they're also putting a lot of pressure on squid. And we know that the white sharks will go down and forage around on the bottom and forage on big crab aggregations, right? So these animals eat whatever they want, but they're experts. They know where to be and when to be there. And we see them moving on the same moon cycles to the same areas. And then lo and behold, you look up what's going on in that area and there'll be some sort of big event going on. A whole bunch of fish coming together to spawn, or piling up on a reef to spawn, or an artificial wreck. And they will move from event to event to event on the structure up and down the southeastern United States over the winter. And that's what they're primarily foraging on. But they do get multiple opportunities in winter there to forage on whales. We see multiple whale mortalities off that coast throughout the winter time. That is obviously a big source of abundance for them to bridge through that winter gap and make it through to the next summer when they head north again.
And everybody just keep in mind that white sharks bear a lot of resemblance to us in terms of a lot of these aspects of their biology. And the young animals have different food needs from the adult animals. When all the animals are up north, we think that they're really, as Chris said, we're really bulking up and really getting all this high calorie food. When they come south in the wintertime, it's more overwintering and they're just kind of sustaining, maybe taking advantage of some food sources. But the young ones that are still growing and are small and vulnerable, they need to eat. The really true adults, the reproductive adults, maybe for a period of time, food is not the most important thing on their minds. Maybe they're down there to find a mate, and once that's over, then feeding picks up. So these are the little intricacies of this of this white shark life history puzzle that we are finally assembling for you.
And then for anyone who's just joining us who might have missed the very beginning, we did talk about in Canada and in their summer, seals is their primary food source when they're up north off of Atlantic Canada.
And because of that, we see different toxins in their system during the summer when they're up north in the fall than we see in their system when they're down off of the southeastern United States primarily, or the Gulf of Mexico. So we do see the toxicity level changing in the animals between those two primary regions.
And talking about seeing the sharks, we see a lot of the sharks. We've gotten 83 up on the lift and we've tagged them, but there's a lot of other white sharks that we know are swimming around us. So Paige, can we maybe bring Mickey into the conversation, and she can tell us all about the use of underwater video cameras and this fascinating thing called eDNA to detect how many sharks are actually where the ship is?
Yes, we have one of our collaborating scientists, Dr. Mickey McComb-Koza from Ocean First Institute, here with us. Mickey was able to join us on all 3 expeditions this year. And to kind of introduce her, we have a quick video that shows a little bit about what she does on the MV OCEARCH during expedition.
I got into shark research because when I was a kid, I saw the movie Jaws, and I was terrified of sharks. And the only way that I overcame my fear was to read about sharks. And the more I read about them, the more fascinated I became. And now I've spent my life researching sharks and trying to find ways to learn more about them. The story of the shark really is a sad story in some ways, because many species are endangered. And so if there's something we can learn from the shark, it's really that they have a right to survive, just like anything else. And if we take the time to care, to learn about them, to understand them, we're closer to helping protect them. And when we have a healthy ecosystem with sharks in it, that's a healthy system for us. So ultimately, when we really strive to conserve biodiversity, we're doing it for ourselves. OCEARCH is very unique in its approach to science because it really allows access to white sharks, which is unprecedented. To be able to come out on the lift and to have access to blood samples, to look at visual ecology of the eyes of the animal, to look at their electrosensory capabilities, to tag the animals. These are all things that are not possible on other research vessels. And it's a blend between the expertise of the fishermen and the expertise of the scientists in really unraveling the mysteries of these animals. I have spent a lifetime of trying to answer questions about sharks with the goal of trying to inspire conservation and a deep care for these animals. I hope to inspire the next generation of scientists and people who care about what happens to the ocean.
And that's Dr. Mickey McComb-Koza. So thank you for joining us today. If you want to share a little bit more about what you do on expedition with us.
Sure. Well, thanks, Paige, and thanks everyone for tuning in today. It's really great to be here to talk about the work that I get to do with OCEARCH. It's been a really wonderful collaboration over the last 2 years, and I've been able to have access to white sharks that I normally would not be able to have access to at all. So it's been a really extraordinary opportunity to go out on expedition and to work alongside the fishermen in trying to understand the presence and the abundance of white sharks in different regions along the east coast of the United States and Canada. And it's been a really interesting journey for me to learn how the equipment gets deployed and to bring back the footage from the cameras that we deploy. So you're looking right now at a triangle. It looks like a metal triangle that's underwater. We deploy those underwater with bait, and we have GoPro cameras that are set to capture the sharks as they're interested in the bait. They're attracted, they come in and they swim around the bait. And from those videos, we can learn, of course, the presence of the shark. We can look at the markings on the shark, whether we have a male or female. And we can also look at some of the identification marks on the sharks to hopefully create an identification database. And this really helps us understand what the sharks are doing underwater and a little bit more about their biology. And so when I'm analyzing some of this footage, it's really exciting. There are many burrows that I deploy where I don't see anything, and then we'll get a shark, and it is really exciting to be able to get those. And the real goal is to look at the effort of the fishermen where they're fishing, I'm deploying my brubs, and we're able to really say, you know, the effort of the fishermen versus the effort of the video cameras, and use many tools in combination to really answer these questions about the presence and abundance of these very rare apex predators.
People get an idea of what that is. We actually have footage that Nikki received on her Bruv cameras from Expedition Nova Scotia this past year. So we'll show that real quick.
Yeah, and it's really exciting when we look at these videos because one of the things that we've learned is that some of the juveniles that Chris was talking about over in Cape Cod in Massachusetts, we're able to look at some of those juveniles offshore. And what we were noticing is that some of them have marks on their heads and some of them don't. And what we're thinking about that is that that's really a transition time where some of these young white sharks are starting to explore the world of seals. And they're transitioning into a completely different food source. So going from fish into seals is quite a transition. And it's fascinating to understand that even down to the tooth shape, it changes as these animals grow. So when they're eating fish, their teeth are more needle-like in shape. And then as they get larger, their teeth become more triangular and serrated, allowing them to really chase down and process the large seals full of fat that really are, very high in calories and what they need as they're growing and going through those transitory times. And so it's been fascinating for us, and some unexpected things that have come out of our work is to really look at some of those transitions and to understand, it's hard to be an apex predator and to chase after these animals that fight back. And so we've learned a lot about that relationship, and it's been really exciting, as I said, to learn things that we didn't know before by deploying these technologies. And not only are we using the underwater cameras, we're also using a new technology called eDNA, where we're capturing water samples where we deploy our cameras. And we're able to take those water samples back to the OCEARCH vessel and process them on the vessel. And what we're looking for is we're capturing with a filter the DNA out of the seawater of white sharks. And we can take that filter paper back to the laboratory and analyze it for shark DNA. And that is just yet one more tool that allows us to understand whether we have sharks present in a particular area. And it allows us eventually, as we do the analysis, to start to make some discoveries about the abundance of these animals in certain areas during certain times of year. So it really is just yet another tool in addressing that white shark puzzle that Chris described. And again, for me personally, it's been an extraordinary 2 years working on OCEARCH to work collaboratively with so many scientists who are so passionate and trying to answer the questions about these animals. You think that an apex predator like a white shark, everything would be known about them. But the truth is we're still discovering some of their most basic biology, where they breed. And so these tools and having access to these animals that OCEARCH allows us to have is really paramount for successful collaborative research that really is a game changer when it comes to the conservation of these animals.
One of the things that Mickey was talking about there is these scratches on the faces of the white shark. So we are starting to see in certain areas that you just look at their faces and there's scratches everywhere. And if you go to the OCEARCH YouTube channel and you watch the videos, particularly out of Nova Scotia, you'll start to see these crazy scratches. And you can see that when they're grabbing the seals, these seals have big claws and they're clawing back and they are tearing up the faces of the white sharks. So you can actually see these animals that come into a region that might just be a fish eater because they're not scratched up. you know, and then they'll transition at a certain size and the little ones will have a few scratches. And then when you see one like Nagumi or something like that, who's been eating seals for 20 years or 30 years, she's all torn up and scratched up. And I think we actually have a group of scientists assembling some information around that right now. Mm-hmm. But it's very interesting to see that, you know, when a white shark eats, it just doesn't get to eat whatever it wants. And it's real quick and easy and simple. Those animals, everything else in the ocean is fighting back, and the seals are making a big impact. And I'm sure a fair bit of them get away.
Yeah.
Hey, and another thing about everything that we're doing, guys, is consider that what we're doing is we're using technology. We're pushing the technology. Yes, we're focused on the white sharks, but what we're learning and the application of what we're doing has ramifications way beyond white sharks. This is like, you know, we're sort of the shark equivalent of a NASA mission to Mars. Think about when we go to the moon or to other planets, how much the technology is revolutionized by doing that. So the things that we're doing, the satellite telemetry, the underwater cameras, eDNA, all the blood work that we're doing, the simultaneous use of ultrasound with other examinations. We are really pushing the field, and this is going to have ramifications in science and marine science for much more than just this one white shark project.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a few more questions, I think, that are interesting, but where do we go from here, Paige?
Yes. So we'll have a couple questions for you real quick, Mickey, about white shark DNA and what if the DNA of the Atlantic white shark that we're focused on right now, the Northwest Atlantic, is it the same DNA as the white sharks in other regions?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And the answer is there are separate populations. And so we are focusing in on the Atlantic population, and we have to have specific genetic primers for the Atlantic white shark. So that's a great question. And I think what's also is really exciting, and I mentioned this earlier, is that we eventually will be able to use these tools to allow us to understand the abundance just by sampling seawater. So this is a non-invasive technique that will really help us as we're working on these very elusive apex predators. And so stay tuned. This is really an amazing technology and a work in progress. And I think as we move forward, we're going to refine this tool and really find a lot of utility and application in fishery science with it.
That's great. Thank you. Now I want to go back to, for anyone who's just joining us, we're going to go back to our development director, Stephanie Brown, to teach us a little bit more about what OCEARCH's STEM education looks like.
Yes, our STEM education, we have over 100 curriculums that have been developed using the tracker and our science that you can learn it from home by downloading at ocearch.org/education. For people listening in and for people that are just joining, there's been a theme going on throughout this entire conversation. Lucy, our intern, learned a lot about science from books and reading papers. She then came on the OCEARCH, saw her first shark, got to participate. Dr. Bob Huter, same experience, right? His first white shark that he saw live was on board the MV OCEARCH. He now helps us develop STEM curriculum training that you can learn it from home, but he's helping advance our science in such a unique way. It's such a fun way to be a part of our community. Our curriculum is all volunteer designed by volunteers, sorry. And if you are interested in learning more, you can email us at education@ocearch.org. And for teachers out there that would be interested in volunteering as part of the program, you can reach us there too.
This is really, you know, when you talk about the educational program, right? When you look at OCEARCH, what we started trying to do in 2012 was like, give it all away, democratize the space, right? So you have science in the now, like the scientists are learning real time, exploration in the now, and why not allow that new information to flow out and create education in the now? So kids can actually learn STEM skills while they're tracking white sharks in real time and learn math and physics and about oceanography. And it's available in both the English and metric system and in over 200 languages. So this is truly for anyone in the world, and it is free and downloadable, especially this time where a lot of people are homeschooling. So yeah, go check that out, because what it does is, like, this is the path to helping these kids become the data-driven centrist resource managers of the future, right? If they're going to be good resource managers and then pass the ocean on, to the generations that follow them, we need centrist people. We need people that look at the data, and this really helps root, young emerging people that are interested in the space with that sort of same disposition that a world-class scientist has. The path to abundance is not really emotional, right? It's about collecting the data you need to do so, and then making decisions to manage resources back while you try to make sure everyone can live a life and have food to eat. So it's really important to have this educational curriculum, and it's a next generation science standard curriculum, one of the most modern STEM certifications there are, and we're just thrilled about it.
And one of the questions we always get is, how can you help? How can you help support our STEM education? And so anyone who's just joining us, I want to have Stephanie just go over again, not only how you can support us, but also get your name on board the MVO search.
Yes, so this Giving Tuesday and through year end, we are running a special campaign with gifts of $55 or more. Your name will be featured on board the MVO search. We reviewed a little bit earlier. There was a video you can watch that highlights the entire wall. It sits outside the crew room, so everyone on board the OCEARCH, scientists and crew alike, walk by it every day and see those names cheering them on. It's a great way to support. It's a great gift for yourself or for the hard to shop for person. You can find out more information at ocearch.org/holiday. You'll also see some of our great shop to give products there that you could buy and take home and wear your support on your t-shirt. Oh, yes, and then another way you can join us this Giving Tuesday is by creating a fundraiser on your social media platforms. We've created a whole toolkit available at ocearch.org/holiday, or you can email me at sbrown@ocearch.org and we can help you set something up.
Yes, and just to reiterate, at ocearch.org/holiday, if you need to learn how to do a Facebook fundraiser, if you want any downloadable assets that you can use to promote your fundraiser with your family and friends, you can find all of that on ocearch.org/holiday. Facebook's making it really easy this year for Giving Tuesday to create fundraisers for your favorite nonprofits. So if you log into Facebook and they ask you to create a fundraiser, you can easily search OCEARCH on there, where we're easy to search, and you can create a fundraiser right then and there for your family and friends to help support our research efforts that Bob and Mickey and Lucy and Chris have all talked about, as well as the education programs that both Steph and Chris just went over. And then we have a couple more questions before we kind of go into what's next for OCEARCH.
Well, let's talk about what's next a little bit. I think that's going to affect the questions.
Okay.
So 2022 is looking super exciting. And one of the reasons we're doing this is because, we have two more expeditions in the Northwest Atlantic, one off the Carolinas, one up in Newfoundland in July. And then we are bringing the ship over to Ireland, Scotland, England, the UK. I saw Wales, someone from Wales on this stream. We do believe that white sharks should be in this area for their summer, fall feeding aggregations. I also saw someone in Norway asking, could these animals make it up as far north as Norway? And, when you look at the temperature charts I've been following through the fall this year of this particular region, I think it's likely there's already white sharks that do occasionally visit maybe the southern part of Norway. They could even be across Denmark and Belgium and in there and along France, as well as Scotland, Ireland, England, Wales. So we will be are scheduled to be in that region, Scotland, Ireland, England, Wales, and perhaps Brittany, France, in September of 2022, which is another reason this is so important that, we're reaching out to help people understand how to help us. When we work on the East Coast, our annual budget is around $2 million a year. For us to move over and work in this region over in the UK region. And then after we finish in the UK in September, the ship will be dropping down into the Mediterranean, and we will be working in the winter in the Mediterranean, much like we do off the southeastern United States. And then we'll be working in countries like France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Croatia, Tunisia, perhaps, and Turkey. And when we move the ship over and we're operating so far away from our home base at Jacksonville University, our annual budget is going to be about $3 million a year. That's how much extra it costs to move the ship over there and operate over there from afar. And we want to do that for 2 to 3 years at a minimum. So it's hugely exciting. Look, we've taken the East Coast of the United States and Atlantic Canada from one of the least understood white shark populations in the world to now by far the most comprehensively understood white shark population in the world. 22 plus research projects on every single animal. So now, and we understand the timing and that life history puzzle now that we showed you. The life of the white shark off the East Coast of the United States is no longer a mystery. Anybody who says that is just not the case. And we believe with understanding the timing of their movements and where and when they're mating, where and when they're birthing, where and when they're foraging now, that we hope to be able to go over for the most difficult challenge that OCEARCH has ever faced. And that is solving the life history puzzle, the Mediterranean white shark, which I think should really be called the Northeast Atlantic white shark, because I think we're going to see that those Mediterranean white sharks are spending a significant portion of the year not in the Mediterranean. We will see. But it's going to be the hardest thing we've ever done. We believe the white sharks are already there. We saw when we went to Nova Scotia and other places around the world where we've worked on white sharks. You know, we were tagging juvenile white sharks off Southern California in 2009 when, you know, people didn't think white sharks were there. We see this often where people just don't see them. These animals are invisible. They don't want to be seen. You're not going to see them when you're seeing other sharks and other animals. And so it's going to be hard, right? We're willing to commit 2 to 3 years to even try to find one. But I am super excited about pioneering new research. This is when we get back into exploration, right? At the front end of all of these is exploration. Like, we don't know what we're going to find, but we know. Albert Einstein once said, imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. Can you imagine the power if we can get the people in Europe and in the UK to reimagine an abundant med, to bring the med back? What we've done off the East Coast of the United States in the last 30 years has been spectacular. We are turning the East Coast of the United States and Atlantic Canada back into one of the great wild oceans. There are more fish here now than there were when our grandparents and great-grandparents were alive. And that's from some management moves that were made in the late 80s and early 90s, showing tremendous results now, just 30 years later. If we can get people excited about imagining an abundant med, we can get people focused on it. We can get that collective energy, and we can start to try to turn the med around and let the white shark lead the way. And so it's bigger than just the white sharks. Yes, we got to solve the puzzle of their lives. We got to turn their life around. That will increase the abundance of the region. That will help us understand climate change in that region. But it will also be the gateway for people to believe we can bring the med back. And we have to, even if it takes 50 years or 100 years. We can't just be okay with the med is dead. We can't be okay with that. And so we have to start the conversation. We have to imagine an abundant med. Because if we imagine it, we can make it happen. And we are going over there to solve the life history puzzle, but we are also going over there to try to inspire people to imagine an abundant med so that we can take the steps in the coming years so that our children see a med that's full of fish and our great-grandchildren see a med that's teeming with fish. And so it costs a little more money to go do that, but it's very exciting because it's the pioneering of research. It's what OCEARCH is best at, getting big collaborative teams of scientists, being able to deliver them sharks where no one else ever has or can, and also being able to create a safe environment for those scientists to explode the rate of data collection rapidly so that we can get information sooner, so that we can manage sooner and affect change sooner. And so I am super excited about what's to come. What we've done in just 6.5 years of expeditioning off the East Coast of the United States has never been done anywhere where many people have been studying white sharks for decades. And we believe we can make a massive leap forward over in that region and solve that life history puzzle in less time than we did it off the East Coast of the United States. And so that is the upcoming mission starting in September of next year. So all you people I see on here in the UK and Wales and Norway, I think I saw Spain, I saw maybe France, we are coming your way because our work is almost done. And I think that the public should be demanding of scientists. Look, if we came into the region, we spent 7 years, we told everybody what our questions were, we worked our butts off, we busted to be able to pay for it because we give the ship to the scientists. The scientists do not have to pay. And we did it efficiently. And we did what's never been done before. And we're going to do it over there. And it's going to be by far the hardest thing we've ever done. And we're going to need everybody. It's going to take us all. We are going to need everyone's help. And we can turn the Med around. And that will also affect the whole western seaboard of Europe and all of the UK. Because if we get these white sharks going the right way, you'll see it. Everything starts coming back because they put that pressure on the seals that are re-emerging so fast. If these white sharks aren't there, the seals wipe out our fish stocks. The white sharks are our guardians of our fish stocks. They prevent those seals from doing that. And so it's super exciting to be starting out and embarking on a whole new project late next year, one that's fundamentally important to the future of the region, the abundance of the region, and it must be done. These are not the kind of things that they're nice to get done. If we want to be able to manage the ocean and give an abundant ocean to the future, this must be done. And so that is what we are going to endeavor to do for the next several years. And we will get it done. And we will inspire people to imagine an abundant Med and slowly turn the corner there to be like really proud of something we leave behind for future generations.
That's great. So guys, we're going to the UK, we're going to the Med. So we've gotten a lot of questions on that on social, and we're happy to finally announce that. We got one great question from Nathan. Says, given white sharks that we've tagged off of the eastern seaboard here in the United States and Atlantic Canada and the Northwest Atlantic that have crossed the Mid-Atlantic Ridge into the Northeast Atlantic, do you believe that there are any sharks from the Med in the UK that maybe go east to us every now and then?
Okay, I guess I'll take that. Well, we haven't found that yet, and we haven't seen any evidence genetically that that's true. And keep in mind that although we had a number of these very large females approach and even cross over the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, none of them continued on over to the Med or to Ireland or the UK. So we think when we go over there, we're going to find a separate population, as Chris described, perhaps connected to the Med. The great thing about this exploratory, high risk, high reward kind of phase is that we don't have to get a whole lot of animals to hit pay dirt. If we just get a few animals over there in the UK, for example, we'll be able to tell if they're genetically related and the same as the ones in the Western North Atlantic, or if they're more related to the ones in the Med. And if we get tags on them, just as the tagged animals that we tracked over here on the East Coast of the US took us to Canada, those animals will show us where the important areas are for white sharks in that part of the world. So all we have to do is get a few and get the process rolling, and then we can build the whole picture. The other thing I want to quickly say as the chief scientist to all of you out there is that you've heard a lot of numbers thrown out about the cost. Those numbers are real. The cost of the ship, even just to run the ship on a daily basis, is about $25,000 a day. A lot of fuel, a lot of upkeep, and our crew. Your contribution really does help. I've been involved with a lot of different organizations in my career, including government organizations, and sometimes the money comes in and you don't know where it goes. But I can tell you as the chief scientist that your contribution really helps us do our work. I do see the results of your contribution at the scientific level, and please don't think that it's going somewhere else. It's fueling all the stuff that we've talked about today, the projects, the collaboration, the STEM education, all of this. So it's very important. Your help is very, very much appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, we're efficient, we're lean, and we're mean. We run it like a business, not a nonprofit. And so the money hits the water because that's what matters, right? And I take great pride in that. For what we pull off for our budget is very efficient. I would stack us up against results per dollar with any organization working on the water.
And we're able to provide the ship to all the scientists in the regions where we go for free. That is extremely different and extremely important to advancing the science. Scientists can't write enough grant proposals to fund something like $25,000 a day in many cases. So again, the contributions of all really help those scientists in those regions, as well as advancing our knowledge of marine science in general all over the world.
And one of the things that's exciting right now, so Dr. Bob Huter, our chief scientist, he just spoke and presented our results over at a big European Elasmobranch Association meeting where all of the scientists from the region throughout the Med and throughout Europe and the UK and Ireland were there. And so we're now building a big collaborative team of the scientists from the region, right? So we're helping the local scientists explode their knowledge forward. And it's been very exciting to see how many people are coming in from virtually every country across the region to collaborate with us across all the different disciplines that we've used off of the Northwest Atlantic. So it's been very exciting to see how collaborative that science community is, how engaged they are, and how much they want to participate. So we're excited about all of our new European colleagues.
Yeah. And, I can second that as a scientist coming on to OCEARCH that, I get myself there and everything is covered. And it wouldn't be possible for my organization to be able to do the research without all of the opportunities that we get. So when Chris says, it's expensive science, it is. But for us, the payoff is the collaborations and the ability for us to work together to really solve some of the problems and the issues that we're facing in trying to understand these animals. And it's unprecedented. We don't get the opportunity for all of us to go out on the water together. And we do that with OCEARCH. And so it's a really special opportunity for us to do that and to do it without having to pay for it. So we're all very grateful.
So we'll just do a quick recap here and give us a quick recap on how people can help on Giving Tuesday. And then we'll close out and I'll close out with a little chat.
Yeah, so I'll take over for Stephanie. So for Giving Tuesday, you can donate and learn more at ocearch.org/holiday. For anyone that donates $55 or more, you get on the special crew on the MV OCEARCH for all of our 22 expeditions. So you get to travel to the UK and Med along with us. And if you can't do that, we also have another option where you can also learn at ocearch.org/holiday to share Facebook fundraisers. So we have downloadable assets where you can share with everyone the importance of sharks, the importance of the work we're doing, our research, our STEM education programs directly benefit from any donations that we receive. And you can learn about how to create a Facebook fundraiser online at ocearch.org/holiday. Or if you log into your Facebook app on your phone, it's right there when you go to make a post. You can donate directly from there and share the information with your family and friends this Giving Tuesday.
So we want to thank everybody for being here, with our chief scientist, Dr. Bob Huter, one of our collaborating scientists, Dr. Mickey, and our intern, Lucy, and our development manager, Stephanie. We want to thank everybody. We got a few questions for some people about international shipping. I want you to know we are actually working on that to try to make that happen for all the people around the world. But it really is about, it's going to take us all. There's no me and you in this conversation. There's no us and them. It's going to take us all when it comes to really delivering an ocean to the future. It's going to be about facts over fear, right? That data-driven centrist approach. What's the data say? Not the fear, because these animals are the key to a future abundant ocean. And for any questions we didn't answer, we'll do our best we can to look after them afterward. And we're grateful for everyone's time here tonight. And, stay in touch with us. I enjoyed this. I enjoy seeing the questions and engaging with people from all over the world. And it's really exciting to see, because all of you out there, you are OCEARCH, right? OCEARCH is not anyone's, it's everyone's. OCEARCH was founded and has been built solely to allow more difficult questions in the ocean to be answered by science teams and to give it away to the future, right? The OCEARCH model and the OCEARCH mission and the institution, it is you, it is everyone. And we're grateful for you being a part of it. And we look forward to seeing you in our expeditions in real time. And I hope that the ocean is yours. I hope that it's yours and your families, and you all love it and cherish it, because, you know, without it, there is no us.
Yes. Thank you all for joining us today.